Is David Vaughn, and I'm a personal trainer. I have a degree in exercise science and over 20 years of personal training experience, which makes me feel really old. But basically, I've worked with clientele from the ages of 6 to 94, covering all sorts of people across the spectrum. Children, of course, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, a lot of people in the obesity category, and that's a little bit of what I think we're going to talk about today. Is the mental health aspect of becoming obese, being obese, and more or less how you got there. So I don't know where you would want to start on that, but
Yeah, well, I'm Becky Parkey, and Dave is my trainer. I met him in July, I think, and I was wanting to get healthy. I felt unhealthy, and he's been great for me. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I have been wanting to be healthy for a long time. And so the first day we started talking, and he was like, "Hey, you're a therapist? We have a lot to talk about." And we talked about how similar in many ways our fields are.
very much so.
In lots and lots of ways. And so ever since, he kind of gave me ideas a lot of ways, and pursuing the private practice that I wanted to do. And so I'm really excited to get to have this conversation with you.
No, it's really interesting because there are so many components that just go with body image in general. And we live in Las Vegas, so you see a host of things just running around. It can be anything from obesity to wanting to look like a Snapchat filter to we have a huge amount of plastic surgeons in this town, or I think we're supposed to call them cosmetic surgeons, but there's just a wide variety of body image issues, I believe, here. And the first thing that I do as a personal trainer is I try to encourage people, you just want to get healthy. And getting healthy is a mindset. It's a matter of taking the time to plan out your meals or think a little bit about what you're putting in your system as far as food, drink, alcohol, whatever it may be. And then putting together a little regimen of working out or time for yourself. And that's the easiest thing to do on paper. Very hard for everybody to do in actual life.
Yeah, I know for me, we talk about mental health, but when there's something bad that happens, emotional eating is so real. And or something good that happens, eating is huge in our society, and we put everything around eating.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I always kind of tell my clients, and I grew up in the Midwest, so maybe it was a little different for some people, but we would go out to dinner like once a month. So when you go out to dinner, everybody would splurge and get dessert. The society we're in now, it seems like everybody eats at least one meal out per week, especially with COVID and DoorDash and everything else. I think people are a little sick of preparing their own food. And so that's a whole nother spectrum of bad eating decisions. So it's just been one of those things where obesity is probably going to be on the rise on the tail end of this once we get real statistics going again.
Which is really an interesting topic because with COVID, depression is on the rise, anxiety is high, and people aren't getting out to exercise.
Absolutely.
And what do you kind of see with that?
So right when the shutdown happened, for a lot of people, you had your avid gym goers that were completely depressed and panicking and trying to figure out what they were supposed to be doing. So that's where you saw the rush on exercise equipment being purchased at like Dick's Sporting Goods, Amazon. All of a sudden you couldn't find barbells, weight plates anywhere.
Bicycles?
Exactly.
You still can't find bicycles.
No,
for my kid, we still could not find her a bicycle.
It's crazy. I had people that were trying to find bicycles and ended up with roller skates.
Yes.
Because it's like, what's the next best option? But one of the things that's funny is typically on a normal weekend, you might see a pickup truck driving down the highway with a treadmill or a weight set, things like that. You don't see that anymore. Everybody's already sold their stuff off or they're hoarding it, which, hey, that's fine. That's great. A lot of people are still scared to go back to the gyms as far as COVID, but at the same time, I think people have gotten into new routines. You're working from home, so take the time to leave the house, maybe not. If you have your kids at home, as most of our kids here are basically schooled online, so you're not going to leave them.
Right.
So you're pretty much trapped in the house.
Yeah.
And that I definitely think has a level of that's brought a level of depression alone, just being stuck at home and no change of scenery. Or even if you are an avid traveler and you're sitting down trying to plan where to go next, you don't really know what to expect when you get there. So people are kind of pushing off travel plans. If you're okay with travel, everybody's different. So, but it's one of those things where normal life is no longer there. So you're trying to find your new norm. So it's creating a lot of anxiety within like my exercise clientele. It's people that used to travel a lot for work, and now you're stuck at home, and so your routine is changing, and that creates anxiety anytime there's change like that. Stress, should say stress.
What have you seen when it comes to? I know you help people with a huge range of weight issues, and so what are some of the, I guess, norms that you've seen? And I know you have a degree in exercise science. And so we've talked about that quite a bit. It's almost like you have a physical therapy degree in a way.
Oh, yes. Not many trainers have had the joy of doing cadaver labs, which if you're unfamiliar, I'm sure everyone's heard the term cadaver. It's literally going in and bodies are pre-dissected. They're dissected before we went in and touched them because we're not pre-med, but you go in and you're literally learning the nerves and the muscles, and you're seeing the heart, and you're seeing what adipose fat tissue looks like, and the effects that like smoking has had on the lungs, or what a heart looks like after it's had heart disease, things like that firsthand. So it's a little different when you're putting together exercise programs because you've already seen the inside or the limitations of the human body, but you're also very well aware of the adaptations that it can make. So when you're putting together exercise programs and trying to find stressors to help somebody grow, whether it be muscular endurance or just putting together healthy eating habits and having the energy sources to get through the day while you're restricting calories and things like that. It's good to have had the knowledge and to actually have been working with the body to see what you're actually dealing with. And it's actually pretty simple when it comes down to putting together exercise programs because you do know the limitations of the joints, the ACLs, the PCLs, and you hear all these terms in sports and sports injuries. But there's a lot of people walking around with injuries from stepping off a curb, herniated discs, things like that. And you have to incorporate that with everybody. And almost everyone that we see has back pain. And it can come from standing all day, driving all day, or sitting at your computer screen all day, which a lot of people are doing with working from home. So,
and I know that can affect mental health as well.
Absolutely, running around in pain. And it's just, I always liken it to when people come in and they work out and they feel they're exhausted by Friday and they've come in 3 other days. So remember those old video games where you'd have like a power supply up in the right-hand corner? And it's like you're pretty much starting with your power supply is a little lower by the time you come in on Friday. And it's because your body's been stressed, because you might be in a little bit of pain, might be a little bit exhausted, might be adjusting to your diet, and then whatever else is going on in your life. So, but exercise is definitely a good way to kind of gain back when you feel like everything is kind of out of control. You can, a lot of rehabs use it, a lot of the self-help books use it. Like, I know that we always talk about life coaching and things like that, but pretty much everyone always points to exercise. And I think the reason is it's a way to establish kind of take back your time, take back your health, and you're designating, say, an hour a day to yourself, and then everything kind of falls off of that.
So speaking of exercise, one of the things that we have talked about recently is that new trailer bigorexia.
Oh, yes.
So what do you think about that?
I have heard that term on and off for like the last 10 years. And I've never really seen any, like there's a new documentary coming out, but I have not seen any real literature on it. Occasionally you'd read like a Muscle and Fitness and you'd see like a page dedicated to that. And it just sounds ridiculous, where it's described as what guys that are fear of being too small, so they want to be larger. And that's definitely sounds like a psychological.
Body dysmorphia.
Yes.
Where they see their body as not adequate, and they see something different in the mirror than what, and it's not just men, it can be women too.
Absolutely.
And in that trailer, we were both looking at it, and there's different parts of their body that look just not right.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that you learn in our field, in personal training and health and fitness field, a lot of the ads that you see, like this guy comes in with an 8-pack, or this female has a 6-pack and they're shredded in their arms and their body fat's really low, which a lot of times the body fat percentages that they achieve are not something maintainable. You're doing it for a photo shoot. You're doing it for a temporary piece of time, whether it be a contest, competition.
Yeah.
There's so many different fitness, figure, bodybuilding. Everything requires you to have low body fat, but it's one of those things where if your body has such a low body fat, male and female, your hormone transport is all screwed up, which will throw you, and I'm gonna put this in layman's terms, completely out of whack. It will seem like you're not thinking correctly. You'll feel depressed, low energy. And so that's why a lot of the times when they do these ads, these guys are just getting ready for, say, a week of shoots, or the contest is for a week. And then, a lot of times I have friends that are in fitness and bodybuilding, they'll have a Dunkin' Donuts backstage because they have deprived themselves for 4 months, 3 months, and now they're going back to regular life, but they're going to start with a splurge.
How interesting.
It's just not maintainable to carry a body fat that low. There's a number of health risks, but at the same time, it's just the whole concept of what we market as healthy is not necessarily healthy. The images that we use are never really too healthy.
Right. And so we were talking about how these people on that documentary are doing it, but they're not doing it for those competitions. And so they're living this way, and they're clearly, they have to have depression. They have very low self-image, and they're living this way. So they're putting a lot of pressure on their heart. You were talking about the health risks are really high, which was really interesting to me, because whether it's fat or muscle, it's still risky for your heart.
Oh, it's still, like, if you're walking around at 300 pounds of muscle, which typically to get to 300 pounds of muscle, if you're not somebody that's like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", if it's not in your genetic potential, you're usually using some sort of outside enhancement, which that alone is typically abused and then creates its own problems. But just the excess weight that you put on and how you got there, your heart grows, your vessels get a little smaller. Everything is just you're at greater risk for those kinds of conditions that someone who might weigh the same or is obese would have, and sedentary. So it's on top of it, you'll see a number of old bodybuilders or weightlifters, old world strongmen, walking around at 40, maybe 50 years old with knee replacements, hip replacements, shoulder replacements, all of these things from the beating that they put on their body to try to achieve this goal or image that they wanted to have when they started out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just, it's very interesting to see the, you'll have the female end of it. It's typically always associated with anorexia.
Yeah.
We see that a lot less, I think, these days. I see a lot of, maybe it's just my industry, but we see a lot more guys that are walking up to one another and going, how did you get this? I want to get my arm bigger like this, and I want to get bigger like this. And it seems like nothing is ever good enough.
Yeah.
And it's everyone's trying to get that action figure kind of physique, like a little waist, and just superhero almost like.
That's interesting. Well, thank you for meeting with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you feel like is important to add, or?
One thing that I just wanted to touch on a little bit, and I don't know if you can back me up on this, but it's just a theory that I've had over the years, was the whole concept of when I would meet with clients, typically people come in to lose weight, and they say, I want to feel better. And no one really has a specific goal. So when I meet with them, the whole idea is to kind of shape it into a specific goal, and then set up smaller goals and an overall larger goal. And you kind of you talk to people for about an hour, and you never do any working out the first session. You just sit and talk. And you're trying to gain insight into the psychology of their days, how their thought processes are, how they got to where they are. And a lot of times, if it's someone, the break point's about 40 to 50 pounds overweight, where it's just bad lifestyle choices, busy life, bad food choices, lack of activity. And I think on average, you can put on like 8 to 10 pounds a year once you're over 30 years old without really noticing it. And so all of a sudden everyone's 50 pounds overweight, and they're wanting to regain that. And they're starting to feel a little depressed because they look in the mirror and they don't see what they used to see, or they see old pictures. And so we sit there and we kind of hammer out the details and figure it out. And those people see really decent results just by setting out a program and goal setting.
Yeah.
But the people that are they're closer to about 100 pounds overweight, typically it's tied back to like emotional eating, some sort of psychological depression. And I don't know if it's one of those things
Trauma, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's their vice or if it's started out as the 50 pounds of like, bad food choices. And then over 50, you started to get depressed more. And then your vice became food. I'm not really sure what it is yet, but there's definitely a tie-in. And I always recommend people that are close to about 100 pounds overweight, go in and do a little bit of talk therapy, is what I would call it. Just to help. And a lot of times it just helps you, like your mind and your body go together. There's, I think it's David Goggins is I think he was a retired Navy SEAL and did something with the Air Force. He also did something with the Army Rangers. But his whole thing is about beating your body down to take control of it psychologically. Which is, I think he has like a 40% rule. He says when your mind is telling your body it's done, you're only 40% of the way there, meaning you can push harder. So everything is always about like the mind and the physical and trying to get them in sync with one another. So but the easiest way to do it is to try to establish regimens, new habits. And how long does it take to establish a new habit?
At least 2 weeks.
There you go. So everybody wants to see these 30-day challenges, these 60-day challenges, these 90-day challenges. The problem is you're seeing 90 as the finish line. And so you're going, oh, I can eat chicken, broccoli, work out every day, 2 times a day for 90 days because I'm just going to go ahead and go on vacation and drink and whatever else at the end. Well, you didn't really learn the healthy habits along the way to maintain whatever you've lost or gained. So I'm not a huge fan of the challenges, the short-term challenges like that, because overall it's a lifestyle change. And that's mentality as well.
I know when I get out of my routines, which I have at different times for sure.
It's the benefit of being busy. And then it comes back to time management.
Right.
It's like we all struggle with it.
That's when I eat worse and it's bad. But going back to kind of what you were saying about the overweight piece, I definitely agree with you. And it may not be just 100 pounds. It could be much less than that. And I think that it isn't just always about emotional eating. It could be not eating, kind of going back to the, the manorexia or the, all of those things. But because that's about control. So that's anorexia as well. It's, there's just so many things tied into food, tied into exercise, tied into all of these different aspects. And we are constantly trying to figure out what's going on with ourselves. And we don't, because of self-esteem or because of who we are as people, we value ourselves last instead of putting a priority on ourselves to be healthy and to take care of ourselves.
That's definitely usually I'll have a newer mother or a mom of her kids, maybe 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. She'll come in and she'll say, I put on 30 pounds and my health has completely declined because I just started putting the kids first. And it's time that I start back taking care of my own health. You can't mock somebody for that. Like they did put their children first. That's great. But they also recognized it and they didn't let it get too far. And they're now trying to get in shape and trying to regain their health, which in turn is better for everybody else in the household.
100%. It's like the oxygen mask thing. You've got to put it on yourself first. And we all do it at different times in our lives.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got twins.
Yes. It's nothing like being up at 5 a.m. to train and then never really knowing if you're going to be up before then and never going to bed on time. So all the things that I recommend to everybody on like 8 hours of sleep kind of goes out the window when little things come flying in.
Twins and your Frenchie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, French Bulldog's worse than twins.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Awesome. Well, to everybody out there, thanks for listening.